Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk revealed the next two gods coming to Smite 2 after Sun Wukong, as well as some teasers for the ones after those two, as well as the results of their Quickplay new player tests, discussions around the state of Conquest, and a whole lot more. So without further ado, let's jump in. So first of all, I'm back. Did you miss me? Yeah, I've been dealing with some major PC problems the last week or so that's why there's been no videos or streams. I'm recording this on an old PC that's good enough to record and edit on, but not really to stream on, so streams might be a few days more while I get my main PC fixed. But yeah, just thought I would mention why there's been no videos for a while. Let's jump into the recap. First up, there's been a bunch of hotfixes that have gone out since the last show. Lots of Mercury fixes especially, but some stuff for Joust teleporters as well. They reduced the level requirement to play normal queues from 10 to 5, and the amount of tickets in Quickplay Arena, as well as some other stuff that you can pause and give a full read of if you want to. New As Aspect is now live in-game if you want to tactical nuke people with crit ults. It is a little bit nerfed from the PTS version, they said, as it was performing way too good there. Next up, the next two gods in the roadmap were revealed today that are coming after Sun Wukong and OB14. Hu Yi will be coming as OB15's god on July 29th. Kilgun mentioned that he's not getting substantial model changes, just a visual upgrade, as they feel his visual design is already pretty good. In terms of gameplay teasers, these were a little cryptic, but he said they will have more control over his 3, a new interaction with his 1 and his ultimate, and his passive getting some new functionality, which is good to hear considering it's sometimes entirely useless if it's not a crit meta. Kilgun also teased Hu Yi's aspect by simply saying something else will be ricocheting, which sounds to me like probably his basic attacks, unless they're gonna like completely rework his ultimate to incorporate that or something. After Hu Yi will be Janus, who's arriving in OB16 on August 12th. Kilgun said he's a little further out from being ready, so less teasers, but in general, the goal is not to change too much about him, as they feel his kit is already good and pretty iconic. Personally, I feel like adding too much to him when he's already a very volatile design could cause issues, so I'm totally fine with this. Kilgun did address some community questions to make the portals more interactive, like letting you shoot projectiles or abilities through them, and he said the team felt like that would be a lot of extra work for not much overall benefit to the game, and it'd be very niche, so they decided to keep them working as they did in Smite 1. Kilgun also said that he thinks there's going to be some small touch-ups on Janus' model, but things aren't finalized for him yet. Not a full remodel by the sounds of it, but maybe some small upgrades similar to what Kali and Mercury got. And finally for Janus, they mentioned they are working on a more crazy aspect for him that will drastically change his play patterns, but they're still a ways out and aren't sure if it will ship exactly as it is designed right now, if at all. Kilgun did mention that they considered showing more than just these two today, as they have a fairly firm lineup in place for the next few gods, but things can always change and they don't want to promise a god that's like 2 months out or whatever and then not be able to make the deadline. It's worth considering that Sylvanas and King Arthur are confirmed for 2025 at some point, and we're getting towards the end of the year now. After Janus, there will be a maximum of 10 gods left for the year, probably more like 9 because the team usually takes a Christmas break. So with King Arthur, Sylvanas, and probably one all-new god in that time frame, there's space for around 6 more ports for the rest of the year beyond what's confirmed right now. There's more info on potential picks in data mining, but I don't like to talk about that in these recaps just for people that don't want unofficial spoilers, but you can check out my data mining videos if you want a potential sneak peek into the rest of the lineup for the year. One final thing Kilgun did mention though is that a support is next after Janus and a jungler after the support, so take of that what you will. The support is probably Sylvanas, but could be another support that's also appeared in data mining, and there is also a jungler in data mining that could be likely for this spot. Again, if you want specifics, you can check out my dedicated data mining videos, no spoilers here. Moving into Q&A though, first up, someone asked if Janus 2 would go back to having a small gap in the center of his 2, and Kilgun said they're conflicted on it due to bad players having a really hard time hitting the ability to the point where his win rates in low level play were absolutely abysmal, and he may as well not exist there, since the 2 is the majority of his damage overall, and if you can't hit that, you're not going to do anything with Janus. He said it's not out of the question entirely, but something they're still experimenting with and deciding if the trade-off is worth it or not. Someone asked how Quickplay has been received and if they've got any data on it yet, and Kilgun said nothing short of phenomenal, and they've had the best new player retention rates in the history of the game over the last week. Not sure if you mean Smite 2's history or including Smite 1 there, but either way, that's great news. This is of course just one avenue of measuring player count, but Steam charts does seem to concur with this, as we've hit some of the highest player counts we've seen since May, and it's a noticeable increase over recent weeks. And if anything, I would say the Quickplay changes cater more to console than they do to PC, so it might be even better there. Kilgun did say it's still early and they'll have to see how it pans out in the long run and if those players stick around for more than just a week, but from early signs, it's looking very positive. Someone followed up by asking if they have any indicators to tell which Quickplay features specifically are driving this increase in new player retention, and Kilgun said they have some general ideas, but nothing super concrete. What they can do now though is start experimenting with turning certain features off or on for certain groups of new players and seeing how that affects things to see which features are the most fast and least valuable for that. He did also mention they're working on getting Quickplay Joust in for the next update and having debates internally on if defaulting new players to Joust might be better than Arena due to there being less people in the game, which means less gods to think about and learn to play against at any one time, which I think makes sense. Joust also, while not the full MOBA experience, at least has some MOBA mechanics and elements in it, like towers, phoenixes, titans, and some lane structure, which could help with teaching players the basics of a MOBA, which Arena really doesn't do, so I think this could make a lot of sense. They said they could experiment with a 50-50 system that defaults some players to Arena and some to Joust for a patch cycle and see the impacts of it to decide how they go forward. They said the last time they ran this test, it was basically the same in terms of new player retention, with Joust maybe ever so slightly less, which personally I think is a worthwhile trade-off considering Joust is probably better at teaching players some MOBA fundamentals compared to Arena, and will probably help them with the transition to Conquest if that's the direction they want to go. Someone asked if they bring back Relic Dagger, and Kilgun said they've had some internal spicy pitches for the item, but it just hasn't been at the top of the priority list at the moment. Most likely they're considering making it affect active items as well somehow, but they'd likely need to change it to a % reduction instead of flat, as that will be very broken with many low cooldown active items like Shield Splitter or Life Binder. They could also maybe make it an active item in itself with a flat reduction, so it takes up one of your active slots, so it can be used to refresh your other two actives and relics. So there's a lot of potential with this item for sure. There was a question about adding Arplash or Tainted Steel to deal with the current strength of healing in the game, and Kilgun said he won't answer that question directly, but they are keeping an eye on healing and will be addressing it at some point, but probably not for OB14. There was a question about the 10-minute teleporter change and if they've got any data on if it's been well received, and Kilgun said from their end they haven't heard much feedback about it, so pretty neutral, but chat was generally pretty positive about the change when they asked. Someone asked if they bring back the lore aspect of Smite and maybe do a lore reset with a new beginning or something for Smite 2, and Kilgun said that generally a very small percentage of players read or even cared about the lore, but sometimes there is value in doing things for even smaller groups of players. He also said that generally the big lore moments were tied to big moments in the game, like Odysseys or new god releases, and there just aren't as many of those going on in Smite 2 right now due to where they're at in development, but maybe in the future when things are a bit more stable and big moments like that can happen again, they could bring back the lore for those moments. Someone asked when the next hard ranked reset will be, and Kilgun said that generally full hard resets don't go over very well because for the first few weeks at least everyone's games completely suck because you have to play against bronze players if you're deity and whatnot, and every time they do a hard reset, even if people seem to be asking for one, it causes more harm than good and they get a lot of negative feedback about it, so they might do a slightly harder reset than last time, but likely not a full hard reset, everyone is at 0 SR kind of deal. Kilgun spoiled a bit about the skins coming in OB14. He said there's a classic Kabrakan skin which they've mentioned previously will be Nerd Rage, a cross-gen Apollo skin which can only be Bit Blaster, as well as a brand new skin that he said was hot, so likely a fire theme. Someone asked about the solo queue Conquest Cups that were mentioned a while back, and Kilgun said that Max leaving the team, who was the matchmaking lead, set those back a little bit, and he was the main person working on and pushing for those, but Hindu Man has sort of taken over them a little bit and they are being worked on, but no ETA yet. Someone asked about the team's general thoughts on the state of Conquest at the moment, and Kilgun said he feels generally that they've gone a little too far in the direction of there's always something to do, and he agrees with the feedback that the game is a little too farm focused right now. Especially the corner harpies haven't really panned out the way he hoped, as they were sort of intended to be a last resort option where if you couldn't or didn't want to contest something more important, you could at least get those. But it's kind of turned out to be just both players walk away and get them on cooldown, which results in less interaction between lane opponents, which is spot on in my opinion. The problem isn't necessarily that there's too much farm or too much to do, it's that there's too much safe farm that's symmetrical to both sides, and it just results in, oh, he's going for his corner harpies, guess I'll do mine. And oh, he's going for Cyclops camp after clearing mid-wave, guess I'll go do mine. It just results in low interaction gameplay where passively clearing the wave and taking a safe camp is the best way to play, when the best way to play should really be contesting riskier neutral camps, but at the moment they just aren't very valuable. The chest camps give a lot of gold but no XP, so early game they're not worth as much, as XP is more important early on than gold is. The rotating buff camps are fine and pretty powerful to contest, I'd say, but the gold pile in mid is obviously very lame and not too valuable, and totem could definitely be better too. Some of Smite 1's best metas were when mid harpies were ridiculously valuable, as it forced teams to fight over them or risk falling behind, whereas now you just say hi to the enemy laner, clear the wave, go take your symmetrical camps, and repeat. This ties into why I keep calling for Beacon to come back to the game as well, as this was also a very important neutrally placed objective, and since it took a lot of time to take and granted the enemy vision of you while you took it, it resulted in a lot of small 2v2 or 3v3 skirmishes to capture it. Even ADCs would sometimes rotate over to capture Beacon, which resulted in some very interesting fights, and it really promotes fighting and swingy plays, which is where Smite is at its best rather than just being a passive farm fest. This also ties into a lot of issues, including mage solos, since generally a tank with a defense item will win a trade against a mage with a damage item, but with how much safe farm is available right now, the mage doesn't need to fight you. They can just out farm you and not interact at all. It also leads to less jungle ganks because so much jungle farm is available in safe locations that often the best play for a jungler is to just power farm until you're 2 to 3 levels up on laners before doing anything. Anyway, that was a pretty long spiel, and maybe this topic deserves its own video from me, but I hope that made sense. TLDR is that more farm on the map isn't necessarily bad, more symmetrical passive farm on the map is what's bad, especially when neutrally placed farm isn't very valuable, which is the case currently. But that's everything discussed on today's Titan Talk, plus my rant about the state of Conquest, I guess. Leave a comment below if you want to see a more in-depth video along those lines, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.